So Rebecca Featherstone asks, she's got a job coming up with us. I know that the filling of the gaps and fixing loose parquet wooden tiles, but will it also ensure that tiles won't come up again? How confident are you that the floor will endure being walked on and without the tiles coming up, and for how long? So Rebecca, as far as I know, we've got a job coming up for you, and we will be sanding and refinishing this 5-finger parquet floor. So we will be securing the loose blocks, and we will then be finishing the floor. So sanding the blocks. What we usually do is lift the loose blocks out and glue them down one by one, because unfortunately with these floors it's a bit like a domino effect. Once you start picking some out, they start just to creep, and then glue them down. Sometimes, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes they sit a little proud, so that's better to glue them down first, and then what you'll do is you'll finish the floor by sanding it and then putting the finish on. You will also fill the gaps. So what the question is here is, how secure would this be? Now, let's explore this, and I've said this before in other videos that I made about parquet and 5-finger parquet in particular. What they do is they use a bitumen glue. Now, the bitumen glue is years ago, before DPMs, which is damp-proof membranes, have really been a big thing. So damp-proof membranes is installed into the floor to prevent the moisture coming through the floor. And especially with wood floors, this is very important. So DPMs have been installed that time, and what they did was they used bitumen glues. Now, the bitumen glue is a black glue, and that is also acting as a DPM as well as a glue. Now, what happens over time is this bitumen glue dries out, and as it dries out, it becomes brittle, it cracks, and these blocks become loose. Now, sometimes it happens in a certain area on the floor, and what you do is you walk around tapping on the floor, and as you tap on the floor, you'll hear the blocks are loose, and in other places they're not. So what you do is you lift those out and you stick them down. But as this continues to happen, the floor dries out continuously, the bitumen is brittle and more of the blocks come loose. You might have us come in and secure those blocks, and 3 years later there's some other blocks loose in other places. You'll also notice we've done recently a project in Chesterton for a church there, St. George, and we've made a lovely video because we support the community there. And in that video, we've secured some blocks. Now, we didn't mention in the video that the reason those blocks are loose is exactly that reason. The bitumen glue has dried out and becomes brittle, and then these blocks start coming out. So they've had a good, probably about 10 blocks. Now, they were bigger blocks. They're not as small as this one Rebecca has. But this is exactly the same reason. So probably in about 5 years' time, we'll go back there and we'll see another 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 blocks loose, maybe even more, because the bitumen dries out. Now, what you should do is you come to securing this floor. Let's say you are thinking of, you know what, these blocks are loose, I want to glue them down, what can I do? Of course, considering you glue it down, it might stand a little proud, you might be good enough at sanding it yourself, so what would you do? And what would we do? So, it's very important to understand that the bitumen glue is a little bit like if you have painted your skirting boards with a solvent-based paint, right? And then you go to B&Q or the hardware store or to Johnson Paint, and you go and buy a good quality water-based paint. And then what you do is you take this paint, and this water-based paint, you just put it over the skirting board. Now, what's going to happen if that paint is dry? You're literally going to be able to scrape it off right away. So what happens there is that the water-based glues will not adhere to the solvent type of what bitumen is, because bitumen repels the moisture. Water-based glues will not necessarily adhere. Now, you can sometimes get away with it. If you clean it up really well, you might secure it, and it might last for a while, but it's not advised to do it that way. So you want to get something, a glue, that will adhere as well as it possibly can to that bitumen, the old bitumen glue, but inevitably you won't get it all off unless you grind it, and if you just lift a few fingers of wood blocks out, you're not going to get it out. So what is advised? Let's head over to the screen again and I'll show you there. So what we do then here, and particularly Rebecca, if you're watching this, we personally would use the Leckol 5500 glue, because this is has got some solvents in it, and it would adhere well to the bitumen. And then the other alternatives, I've done a bit of research, and there are other alternatives. So we've got this Lumberjack 160 wood bond, that's also an option. Otherwise, I have been speaking to Terry of Ultimate Floor Care, and he has found that Bostik Damp-Proofer came as very highly regarded, and they might go as far as saying that they guarantee the blocks won't come up. although, you know, it can be messy because it's a black glue and it can bleed through. So that's why we don't personally use this one. The alternative is Sika 5500S. So this is also a glue you can use. You will notice all these are in a tin can because they are solvent or contain solvents. And we stick those down using that glue. Now, if we stick them down, there's no guarantee that they would last forever. The only way we can be sure that that floor you'll put down will last forever is unfortunately lifting the whole thing and relaying it using a very modern type of glue, because we are making the floor as good as we can. Now, over the years, we've secured blocks, and I cannot remember that we've once had somebody call us back saying the blocks didn't stick. So the glues we use work really well, but there's no guarantee they would absolutely stay down forever. So Rebecca, I trust that helps you understand how we'll go about doing this. And also very important to realize here that if you have loose blocks, you might have an area that's not loose at the moment, but it might become loose later. It's also possible it might never become loose, but inevitably over the time it would.